Welcome to Top to Bottom Male Romance Podcast, where we celebrate all things male romance. I am Jessica.
And I'm Markie.
And this is our December top episode.
Indeed. Before we get into all the fantastic goodness of this episode, we do want to remind you that we do have reader groups. We have one on Facebook and on Goodreads. You can jump in there at any time to talk about the bottom pick for the month, any cool books you'd like to recommend, a good TV series you found, movie like comic book series you recently picked up, anything related to male romance, you can jump in and let us know about it. We also have a Patreon. Our patrons get heads up on any author interviews that we have scheduled and are able to submit author interview questions. So if you haven't had a chance to go check that out, make sure you do so.
And as always, if you haven't yet rated us on whatever it is you listen to us on iTunes, Stitcher, Spotify, make sure you go and do that so other people can find us as well.
Awesome. This is going to be a really fun episode. So we were able to snag an interview again with the amazing Kirt Graves. We had him on last year in November, the same month as we had Gail, which was super cool. And he has since blown up with projects, so I'm super excited that he was able to take an afternoon to chat with us and be silly with us. So we super appreciate him taking the time and being fantastic.
He's freaking sweet as hell, and I adore him. I'm excited that he was able to come on and hang out with us for a bit.
Mm-hmm. So I guess before we dive into it, just real fast, and we're going to talk about it a little bit more at the end of the episode, we had a birthday giveaway last month where we shared a post that people were able to comment on and share, and we are going to be announcing the winner of that after Kirt's interview.
So without further ado, our interview with Kirt Graves II.
Joining us back on the podcast is friend of the show, Kirt Graves. Kirt was one of our very first interviews back in 2017, and we're so excited to have him back on the show to talk to us about his work. So welcome, Kirt.
Thank you for having me back, guys. Am I the first return guest?
Actually,
we actually had Gail. Gail was our very first interview, Gail Carriger,
Yeah.
And we actually, her new Omega Objection is our November book pick, so we had her on again. So you guys were our first two interviews, and then you're our last two for the year as well. So it's pretty perfect, actually.
Okay, all right, I'll take it. I'm going to work a little harder then and make sure that
So I know I asked you this before we started recording, but now for everybody else, how are you doing?
I'm doing really well. It's been an amazing time for me since GRL and the stress of the summer and moving and, trying to create a new home on top of trying to create a new business and a new sound booth and all of the things that come along with like picking up your life and moving it somewhere have kind of subsided. And now it feels like home again and there's a routine. So I'm really, really good.
Awesome.
Yes, very glad to hear that. So jumping into what you just mentioned, you attended GRL for the first time this year.
Yeah.
Can you tell us a little bit about your experience and what was it like going out there?
Oh, I don't know if I can tell you just a little bit about my experience, but I'll talk for...
Then tell us a lot.
I'll talk for a while and you can make it whatever length you want. I had an amazing experience at GRL, which I was told to expect by absolutely everyone before I actually went. But that doesn't stop you from being like really nervous about going to a conference where you don't know anybody. And unlike a lot of other like work conferences that I've gone to before, like I was really going by myself. I was solo. My husband came with me for the trip, but he wasn't attending the conference. And I wasn't just going as like an attendee. I had been one of the people who was lucky enough to like register in time to be considered a featured narrator. So I also had to like show off for people, if that makes sense. And I wasn't exactly sure what that meant or how that would go over. I got to meet Markie at the conference, and I told her a little bit about this while I was there, but like those first couple days are so nerve-wracking. And I'm not really an extroverted person. Like I've always said that I'm an introvert who's comfortable with the spotlight. Like if I have time to prepare something like in a theatrical presentation or if I'm giving a speech or a presentation for work, as long as I have time to prepare and like there's a designated time where like now I talk and everybody listens to me. Totally comfortable with that. Like I don't have like stage fright or anything like that. But just walking into a room and having to like talk to humans, I'm like, no, thank you. I'm good. I'll be over here. So like day one, I got there and there's like this newbie meet and greet, which is actually that happened later in the day. At first, it was just like a kind of casual, like, let's all get together and be in the same room. That was terrifying. I immediately made friends with the bartender. I got myself a drink. The other thing is too, is I wasn't staying on site, so I had to carry my stuff with me, like all the stuff for my table and my giveaways. So I'm like lugging a backpack and my little rolling suitcase, and I have a glass of wine, and I'm kind of standing in a corner, and I'm trying to make sure my hand doesn't shake. So like I'm sweating from the effort of not making my hand shake as I'm surrounded by all of these people, and everybody seems to know somebody. Like even if they're new, everybody seems to know somebody. And I was just like so terrified. And that's when the author Alexa Land came up to me, and she started chatting me up and brought me to a table and was like, sit down, let's chat. And that was kind of my first icebreaker of getting to know people. But it really was for those first couple days, like that first evening and then the full Thursday, and that I was there by myself. How do I say this without sounding like a jerk? I thought some people would know who I was. Like, maybe not a ton of people, but like, I thought somebody would be like, oh my God, Kirt Graves, nice to meet you. For the whole first day, that experience did not happen. And that's fine. Like, that's totally, totally fine, because then I had a chance to really reflect and be like, okay, this is why it's important that I'm here, because I'm getting my name out, and then people will know who I am. And that's good. It's like a conference situation for anybody who hasn't ever been to one. Like, there's tables lined up. People can walk by and kind of stop at your table if they want to. And so I have like my stuff out. I have my banner. I'm standing by my table. I'm smiling. I'm nodding at people as they walk by. They're very politely making eye contact, but then like looking away and walking on by. So I was like, okay, that's fine. Not as big a deal as I thought I was. Totally cool. Not going to be an issue. That's why I'm here. So like I had made peace with that. Then came Friday. And Friday is when TJ Klune showed up. And Friday is when everything changed. So like once TJ Klune was there and he was like standing next to me and we did our tables at the same time, then people like suddenly got a little more brave, and they would come up and talk to TJ, and then they'd kind of talk to me at the same time. And so that was nice, because then I got to meet some TJ fans who were like, oh yeah, I totally know who you are, and that's great. And then we did a reading together on Friday, and that's when the whole experience kind of broke open. I don't know what it was that made that more possible for people, but like just a handful of folks had talked to me before the reading on Friday. And then after 11:30 on Friday, when I did that reading, it was like suddenly everybody was coming up to me and talking about Wolfsong and other work I had done. So I don't know if I just needed to like get on stage and be like, hello, I'm Kirt Graves, or if it was just like, I don't know what it was. But the whole conference broke open after that first reading. And then suddenly people were like comfortable just like approaching me and talking to me on my own. Like even if TJ wasn't standing right next to me. So that was really, really cool. And that's when, for me, like the conference really got started, is when I started making those connections with readers, talking to other authors, being able to like talk about the work more. And I really, really loved that. So, okay, so now we're only to Friday. What else is there to talk about? Well, I suppose we could talk about TJ Klune for just like a second. Although he's going to hate me for telling this, but I'm going to say it anyways. So this is how I meet TJ Klune. Like, first of all, I just walked past him and like noticed he was there, but I had to go to the bathroom. So I was like, cool, he's here. Be right back. Went to the bathroom, came back and like found where he was sitting, and he was actually sitting next to Greg Tremblay, and they were having a conversation, and I started eavesdropping because that's what everybody does. Even if you say you wouldn't. Like, I was just standing there and like I didn't want to interrupt, so I was like, I'll just stand here until they're done with their conversation, and also I'll listen to what they're saying because that's fun for me. So they were talking about one of TJ's books, the one that came out right after GRL, The Bones Beneath My Skin, the one that Greg is narrating. And rightfully, Greg was like just really, really animatedly telling TJ how much he loved the book and the story. And one of the characters in particular, I don't remember which one he was talking about, but just like gushing about the work. And I was like, I cannot let this happen.
You will not be upstaged.
No, I don't know what it is about my personality. Like, I've never been comfortable with praise, whether it's my own or like somebody else getting it. But I was like, oh, I see how this goes. TJ Klune walks in and everybody starts telling him how amazing he is. Noted. So that admittedly colored the rest of my experience with TJ Klune, because I was like, I will not gush about this man not in front of his face. I've done it plenty in other places, and I will do it behind his back. But I am not going to sit at a table and tell him how amazing he is for 5 minutes, because it's already happening and he just got here. So at some point, like, he noticed that I was there and gave me like a really awesome hug. He's a good hugger. And then we kind of broke away for a little while to prep for the reading that was happening that day. And like I said, I'm not like a social person. I have a little bit of social anxiety, but like meeting him, maybe just because we've talked a couple times, or the fact that like I know his writing so well and he really does put a lot of himself into his writing. It was just nice to meet the guy, and it felt like just chatting with an old friend. Mm-hmm. Like he was immediately, like he put me at ease. We were just chatting about stuff, you know, grabbed some books from his car to set up for the signing later, all that fun stuff that he has to do. And like I said, once he was next to me by my side, it was like, well, now look at all these people who want to come talk to me. And that's also when I met like the ladies of the Clunatics, like the American contingent that kind of started the online fan group for him. And
those ladies are amazing.
Yeah, they're fantastic. And so the whole thing kind of broke open for me right then and there. And like I said, we did the reading, and that's when we announced Love Song, the podcast, which I know we'll talk a little bit more about. And the next day after that was another reading that I did as an official narrator. And again, it was just like the floodgates opened. And once that reading was done, I had a lot more contacts with people and folks who wanted to chat with me. And I love that. And like, it's still too early after GRL to know what comes of it, you know, professionally. And, you know, was it worth the investment? Because it's an investment to do all of that. You know, I did these little postcards, some TJ Klune characters on them as like giveaway for my merch. And people were excited about those. And I've been seeing pictures of those being posted from like literally all over the world. And that's really exciting to me to see that, you know, something that happened over these few days in Portsmouth, Virginia, just like reverberated around the world. And people love his work so much. And I am just so fortunate to get to be a part of that universe. And not for nothing, he's like a really nice guy and super talented. And don't tell him I said that.
We will deny it. Going to what you're talking about with the fans being apprehensive to approach you, I know from my experience being at GRL, it is always terrifying as hell to like walk past somebody who you admire a ton. So it could be a good portion of it is that everyone there is book nerds and also introverts, and they probably were scared to approach you because you're Kirt Graves. You know what I mean? Like it's nerve-wracking. And I was like, I consider myself to be pretty comfortable around you because we talk online and we've interviewed you before, so it's whatever. But like when I was walking up to meet you in person for the first time, I started getting like, oh shit, you know, like, what is, yeah, you know, it's like the nerves kind of attack you. So it's probably a combination of things because it was the first time you were there. And so people didn't know how to react to you or didn't know how to start a conversation. And then TJ being, you know, TJ, and everybody knows who he is, and he's such a super nice guy. When they saw you guys interact, they're like, okay, this is safe space. This is a safe space. So I think that's probably had a lot to do with it. So they probably did know who you are. They're probably terrified.
Well, based on the number of new Facebook friends I got after GRL, I think next year will be a totally different experience.
Yeah,
so
for sure.
It'll be nice to get to that like cool, comfortable, like let's just hang out and chat for a little while space much sooner. Because, yeah, that first day and a half was like, it was a lot for me as somebody who does not like being in new places and meeting new people. That was tough. Yeah. So, but like I said, by the end of the experience, I had just had such a great time. And I didn't even I also got to meet Michael Leslie, one of TJ's other narrators, and we got to spend some time together, and I got to see him, you know, perform part of one of his series for TJ. And like just seeing him perform in person, I was like, whoa, this guy is super talented and cool. And he is also just like super nice and much taller than I expected. Like he's kind of a hunk, which was I didn't see coming, but I was like, oh wow, hey, Michael Leslie. And then all the other narrators who were there were amazing to talk to. And I just got to meet so many cool authors whose work, even if I haven't read it yet, I've heard about them, and I've heard just great things about who they are as people from narrators who have worked with them. And so that was really cool. It was really, really nice.
Meanwhile, next year I'll be the newbie who's terrified of speaking to anybody.
Well,
so
Yeah,
it'll be
welcome.
fun.
Your turn.
Yeah, exactly. Well, we can carry you on that because since it'll be my third time going now. I'm obnoxious now. I'll just walk up to people, and then Kirt will be there, so it'll be fine.
Yeah.
Oh, honey, you've been obnoxious. That's not new.
Ha! This one, she's got jokes.
Okay, well, I am still super jelly that everybody got to go and not me, but I'm so glad you had a great time.
And your wedding went really well, I bet.
It did. It was super perfect and awesome and way better than I expected it to be with no real problems, which is shocking. So
Yeah.
really excited about that.
Well, congratulations, just in case I forget to say it later.
Thanks.
That's awesome.
Appreciate
And we have a very similar anniversary. So like when we see each other at GRL next year, we could celebrate our anniversaries with each other, which won't be weird at all.
No, totally
Not at all.
fine.
Not awkward in any way. That's great. Okay, well, switching gears just a little bit, we'll talk. I want to talk about your work a bit.
Mhm.
We are still at this point. I'm not sure what date this is going to air. If it's going to be before or after Raven Song comes out on audio. We're really excited about it. So,
Me too.
do you want to tell us about how it was different recording that from Wolf Song, which was your first?
Yeah, well, the main difference is I kind of know what I'm doing now. So that's, that makes all the difference. I was so out of my league with that first book, and thank God I didn't know that because it would have affected the work, and I think ultimately I made it out of there unscathed, though there are plenty of things I would go back and fix if I could. I was so naive, and approaching Wolf Song, it's hard to even really put myself back in that mindset, how I made decisions about certain things. And what I remember distinctly is more like the technical process of like trying to learn how to create an audiobook that sounded like an audiobook. And I started it over 4 times. I remember that number very clearly because I also had to get it done as quickly as I could. And clearly there are no words because like they're not there. So when it came to approaching Raven Song, and I've said this before too, the characters were all just on the page, and that's TJ's talent. He has the ability to create these amazing people, and I just heard them that way in my head and voiced them as best I could using the instrument that I have based on the voice I heard in my head. So often voice actors, especially audiobook narrators, will use inspiration, like other people's voices or like famous actors, to kind of help guide them as a characterization, and I didn't have those tools in my tool belt yet when it came to Wolf Song. So I was just reading from the page and what he wrote. I'm so fortunate that he liked it enough to hire me, and then got extremely lucky that the audience that already loved and embraced him in that story also embraced my narration. So it was so organic that first time. And so I was a little nervous leading up to Raven Song, like would the experience I've gained, would the knowledge I have now get in the way of that? Like how organic it felt the first time. And I was so happy when I picked up the book, and he had sent it to me in advance so I would have a chance to prep. And from page 1, it was like, there they are again. They're all here. They're back. They're in my head. These are people that I know and love, and it was the most seamless process for me to pick up most of these people. There are some changes from book 1 to book 2 based on my experience and what we learn about some of the people, in Raven Song that we didn't know in Wolf Song that colors how they would sound as a person. And so things are adjusted, but for the most part, it was just all there again. And, TJ built this amazing world and these amazing people, and I was just thrilled to be able to play with them again. And then, I got to play with them for a good long time because it took a long time to record that book. And, now that I'm working on it full time, it was the better part of a month that I just spent on that one novel, which is not normal, but it's another 19, 20 hour epic story. So did I answer the question? I can barely remember what it was.
Yes, that was wonderful and beautiful.
Okay.
What was the process of finding Gordo's voice? Because the point of view from Raven Song is Gordo, which is night and day difference from Ox from Wolf Song. Mm-hmm. So what was it like, shifting into Gordo's head for recording that?
Oh, Gordo is so special to me. I loved Gordo in the first book in Wolf Song. And TJ has said, like, it was my voice for Gordo that got me the gig. So he's more special to me than I ever knew at the time. And again, the way he spoke in the book, like the way he used language is what gave me his voice. And I just saw him as like this kind of rough and tumble, like redneck dude. I have a lot of cousins they work in rural Wisconsin and they like raise livestock and live on a farm, and they just have that like twang to their voice, that rough edge, that we don't really care what we sound like attitude. And to me, that was Gordo. He's a nice guy with a heart of gold, but he's also a redneck and kind of an asshole. And that's great. And that's also a part of my personality. So it works out in that way as well.
Is there a particular scene that stands out for you specifically in the book that was like hard to record, or maybe one that was super fun that you really enjoyed?
One of my favorite scenes in the whole book, I chose to do it as my reading at GRL and TJ's panel, it's in the very first chapter. It's a conversation between Gordo and Elizabeth. And this is common knowledge even for people who haven't read the book yet, but like basically the first third of Ravensong is a flashback in 2 parts. So it's a flashback to the time when Gordo, Carter, Kelly, and Joe all leave for the 3 years during Wolfsong. And then it's also a flashback to Gordo's youth. So there's a scene with Gordo and Elizabeth before those 4 boys have left for the events that take place in Wolfsong. And it just exploded this backstory for me that Gordo and Elizabeth had a relationship when they were younger, and it's not an easy relationship, and the 2 of them love each other, but that doesn't mean they always like each other. And that changed my whole perspective on the world of Green Creek and how Gordo would think about things. Because in Wolfsong, I love Elizabeth. Like, she's just the best. Like, she's just the definition of like a mama bear, and she's warm and loving, and that's like the way I heard her voice in my head. And then to realize that, like, of course, in the course of a life, there would be conflict. And with what happened in Wolfsong, like what we know about Wolfsong is that the Bennetts had to leave, and that would have ripped a hole in this life of Gordo's. And I hadn't thought about it that way from Wolfsong. And it's like first chapter of Ravensong, TJ explores that, and the conversation between the 2 of them was like, whoa. Reading it, I knew it would be one of my favorite passages. Recording it, I loved it. Being able to do it at GRL, loved it. What was difficult for me? Oh, what wasn't difficult for me in this book? Because of the time jumps, and I wrote a blog post on my website about it if people want to go see that too. One of the major challenges was that in Wolfsong, Thomas's voice, to me, had a regality to it. He was the alpha. In my head, he kind of sounded like James Earl Jones, but I can't sound like James Earl Jones. So it would just be, deeper and smoother and just very regal. And that made sense because he's the alpha. And then when Joe becomes the alpha, spoiler alert for anybody who hasn't read Wolfsong, but you should go do that now. Joe becomes an alpha, and then I was like, oh, well, he should kind of sound like that too. And it made sense for Wolfsong, and that was fine. And I had no idea there were going to be sequels. And now we're in a sequel that's also a flashback where I have Thomas again, but now he's a kid. So he's not an alpha yet. So what does Thomas sound like before he's an alpha? And then I also have Thomas's dad, Abel, who's another alpha. So now we're really stretching the abilities of my vocal instrument to try to come up with 3 different ways for an alpha to sound like an alpha. And I was super stressed out about all of that because I was like, oh no, how am I going to do this? And people's expectations and blah, blah, blah. And then I finally came to the realization that I was like, dummy, you made this whole thing up. This is totally in your head how this is what an alpha is supposed to sound like. That's not a thing. You made that up. So just make some more stuff up. And then once I had that breakthrough in the first third of how to do stuff, I was like, oh yeah, that's right. This is all in my head. This is all just make believe, and I can do whatever it is I need to do to make it work. So that was a challenge early on. I was like, oh my God, all these people who we know as adults, and people will recognize, because a lot of people out there don't listen to Wolfsong once, and they write me about it. They're like, I'm listening to it for my 6th time. And it's like, oh crap. What happens to those people if they hear what Thomas or Elizabeth or Gordo sound like as a child and it doesn't resonate for them? If there's no connective tissue there to what somebody sounded like as a kid to what they sound like as an adult, there has to be something that connects those two. So that was a struggle. But I think I did okay. I'm really excited for people to hear it and to get some feedback, because right now I'm still one of only like 4 people who's listened to the whole thing. So I think it works. Who knows? Hopefully it works for everybody who listened to it. So that was definitely a struggle.
Well, I'm sure it's amazing. And we've read the book, but we're going to absolutely get the audio as soon as it hits Audible or wherever it's going to be at, so we can listen to it and freak out, because me and Jess actually talked about this. We were talking about how Wolfsong, we both listened to it on audio, and that book made me cry so many times. Oh, sorry. Are you actually me right now?
So I am. Well, for me, I read it, like just read it ages ago. And then when Markie decided to go ahead and do the audio, I was like, well, let me do this with you. We'll both break our hearts together. And while reading the book tore me apart and like emptied my soul, you actually made me cry.
Aww.
So
thanks.
Yeah. Thank you.
It's a good thing, right?
Yeah.
But I'm ready for you to rip my heart out again, so this will be fun.
Good. Well, and that's the thing about Ravensong is like there's plenty of angst, but it's totally different.
Right.
So
yes,
like
true.
It evokes an emotional reaction, but it's not the same emotional reaction as what you get in Wolfsong when the primary people that you're looking at are Ox and Joe. Mm-hmm. It's very different. And Gordo is not as easy to feel sympathy for, mm-hmm. if that makes sense.
Right.
And I think sympathy is what I'm going for, because like it's not that he's not beloved.
Sure, but not.
He makes it hard to root for him sometimes.
Yeah, because he's an asshole, like you said at the beginning. So it's sometimes he really pulls that card, and you're like, wow, you're a dick. I mean, I still love you, but that was mean. So yeah.
And sometimes and TJ's so good too, because again, don't tell him I said this. But he's so good at what he does, because in scenes with Gordo and other people, he never lets like the heartstringy moments linger.
Right.
Like it can be sweet and sad and beautiful, and then Gordo or somebody around him, because they know Gordo and are like Gordo, ruins it by saying something snarky or hilarious or mean. Mm-hmm. And he never really lets the sappy moments just hang, because TJ knows Gordo wouldn't let that happen.
Right.
So it's definitely different. Plenty of feelings. If you like your feelings from Wolfsong, don't worry, you will have feelings. But it's different. It is a different beast.
Love Song, however, was still heart-wrencher. I only listened to that. I didn't read that one, but it was a podcast that you had come out. How did that come together? Like, what made you decide to do it that way as a podcast?
Well, I mean, that goes back to GRL in trying to figure out how, as an industry professional, as we were titled, like, what can I provide to people who are going to GRL that they will actually value? Something that they would take with them and appreciate, because there's the physical stuff, there's merch, there's pens, and I did like colored pencils and those postcards, and I thought that was a cool idea. But I also wanted something that wasn't so much of like a giveaway. And so TJ had announced that he was going to be doing this short story, and he had talked about the short story in the interview that he and I did for Big Gay Fiction Podcast. And we did that interview way before the interview aired. So I had like a month and a half of extra notice that this thing was going to be happening, and about how long it was going to be and what it was about. And so I thought to myself, like, I think a really cool giveaway item would be to somehow be able to give away the audio of that story, having not read it yet. Like I hadn't read it, TJ hadn't shown it to me, but I thought this could be a cool idea. So the first person I did is I ran it past TJ, and he was like, yeah, that's totally cool, but because Dream Spinner owns Green Creeks, like the series, like, he's like, I wrote that story and I gave it away for free, because if anybody's making money on it, then, Dream Spinner has to be involved. And that's just how the publishing world works. And I was like, cool. I wasn't like trying to sell it. If we do it as a podcast, then it's free. It's totally available. Nobody makes any money, which is not usually a good thing. But in this case, it's a good thing. Nobody makes any money. So then he sent me the story, and it was so flippin' beautiful. I opened it up on my tablet in bed one night and just read it from start to finish. And by the end, I was bawling. It was so gorgeous. And I was like, well, now this has to happen. And so that's and I moved forward from there. I was like, okay, we're going to do this. I'm going to record it. I'll record it after I do Raven Song because I wanted to make sure that I was totally back in the world before I tried to take on Love Song, because Love Song is very much like Wolf Song in that, the style of writing is poetic almost. And so I wanted to be in the headspace for it. So I recorded Raven Song, and then right after that I recorded Love Song. And I'm so happy I did because, like I said earlier, I just love Elizabeth as a character. And I love the little bit extra insight we get into her life from Gordo's perspective. But it was so nice to be able to see more of what she was thinking and feeling during the events of these first two books. I love her, and it would have killed me if someone else had gotten to voice that. Not that anybody else would have, but I was preemptively jealous of somebody else doing that. And so I had the idea before I saw it, but once I saw it, I was like, this has to happen. One way or another, it must happen. And I'm so pleased with how it turned out, because also doing a podcast, I got to do fun extra things like add music, which, I don't do in my audiobooks, but I was like, it's a podcast. There's no rules. So that was fun. It was really fun.
You also interviewed several other voice actors for TJ's work, which I loved. I really enjoyed listening to all of that. So I'm going to steal one of the questions that you asked.
Oh, okay.
If you could narrate any work of fiction, just your choice, whether it's already been done or not, what would you pick?
Right now, I mean, that answer is probably going to change based on what mood I'm in. But lately, I've been on a really big Michael Crouch kick. He's a voice actor. He's also a real actor in real life, but he does a lot of audiobooks. And he narrated Simon versus the Homo Sapien Agenda.
Oh, cool.
Which I loved. I loved his version of it, but that would be the book right now that I'd be like, if I had a chance to take a swing at that, I would really love that.
I would totally listen to it again. What about one of TJ's books that you didn't have the opportunity to narrate? Which one of those would you have picked to have had a chance to do?
Olive Juice. No second thought.
You really like breaking my heart.
I've talked about that before. I talked about it with Derek on his episode. I wanted that book. I didn't, I'm trying to think in the timeline when that came out, but I know TJ previewed it and then released it. I bought it right away. I read it right away. I was like, oh my gosh, I want to do this. And then it was the next day that he was and Derek's going to do the audio. He didn't hold anything back. It just I got it in just the 10 hours between him releasing it and saying, oh, and Derek's going to do it in audio. And I was like, damn it. He got it. And that was, I totally understood. I wasn't mad about it or anything. But that kind of sad, angsty, so much of the story is internal and memory. Oh, I love that. I love, that is my wheelhouse. And I would have loved to have been able to tackle Olive Juice, because I also think it's beautifully written and is a really important story. So that's the one I'm most jealous of. I would love to record anything TJ writes. They're all great. I wouldn't come for Michael Leslie or Greg Tremblay or Derek McLean on any of the things they've done. I wouldn't try to say I could have done it better, but I would have loved to record anything he's written.
Well, speaking of audiobooks, you posted recently that you were hired on to produce the audiobook for Straight Boy by Jay Bell. And I know that you were really excited about it. Can you tell us a little bit about the project?
I can tell you very little because I still know very little. It's very new. It's one of those times when I saw an audition online to do the book, and I immediately liked the cover. I knew the author because Jay Bell did his Something Like Summer series that had been turned into a movie. So I was like, all right, I know this guy has some followers. People like him. And then I read the sample that was provided for the audition, and I just loved it. It's very reminiscent to me of Simon versus the Homo Sapiens Agenda, or, They Both Die at the End, or what's the other Adam Silvera book? These kind of gay YA books that have been coming out lately. It felt very reminiscent of that. He said right up front in the audition, there's no explicit sex, which I am not opposed to, but it would be cool to be able to do a book that I could recommend to my mom.
Right.
Here's one you can listen to. So that was exciting. And again, it was mostly just the few pages that he provided for the audition. I was like, I like this. I like this so much. And I want it. and I worked on the audition harder than I do most auditions, and I just was so excited. And I mean, I even made a post about just being able to submit the audition. Like, that's how much I liked it. I felt lucky just to be able to audition for the work. And then it was like the fastest turnaround ever. Like, later that day, he sent me a message to ask some questions, and I was like, holy crap, is this happening? Like, am I going to get to record a J Bell book? And like within 24 hours, he had agreed. Like, the audition was good enough, and I apparently answered questions to his satisfaction, and he picked me.
Yay!
And I'm so excited to get to work on that. I have the next Lavender Shores novel and then the sequel to Exhale to work on before I can get to Straight Boy, but they will all come up now in rapid succession.
That's awesome.
Succession that seems even rapider. And now that like things like Thanksgiving and we have a trip to New York and holidays are all going to start getting in the way of recording. I was like, oh, shoot, I got some work to do. But I couldn't be more excited to be doing the books that I'm working on over the next month to 6 weeks. And to be able to get to Straight Boy. If the rest of the book is as good as the audition, like, it's going to be right up there for me with working on TJ Klune's work.
That's really exciting.
Mm-hmm. I know, right?
I don't think I've read any of J Bell's stuff, so this is going to be all new for me. So that's cool.
Hang tight. I think it's going to be really good. and yeah, I'll make sure to let you know how it's going as it's going.
For sure. Well, other than, you mentioned a couple of your projects, what else is coming up that you'd be willing to share or are able to talk about?
That's kind of all I can talk about at the moment, those three. I know, like I said, I'm working on the fifth book in the Lavender Shores series right now, and then I will move on to the sequel to Exhale by Joel Abernathy, and that's called Bleed. And then I will work on Straight Boy for J Bell. I do have a couple projects booked for the beginning of next year, but they have not been announced yet. We know that the third story in the Green Creek series will come out late next year. I think fall is what TJ said. Sweet. I think September is what he was thinking about for Heart Song, which is the third book in that series. I have yet to read that, so that should be coming down the pike sometime, probably in spring, so that I have some time to prep it. And other than that, like, there's a lot of wide open space after. Oh, and I think Omega Objection will be coming up soon as well. So we've just started talking about that. With the guy that Gail uses as her producer for her audiobooks. So we are starting talks, but I think that's coming down the pike early next year. Can I talk about anything else? No, I can't talk about anything else. So that's all. So like I'm pretty busy through the end of the year, but then beginning next year again, like, I'd love to keep booking projects and keep myself booked out a month or two in advance. So and again, like, I've had lots of lovely conversations with people after GRL about working with them on future projects, but nothing is set in stone yet.
Very cool.
So I've got one more question for you, and I'm going to do to you what you did to everybody else, but I'm doing yours without notice.
Oh, no.
You asked everybody, because of your podcast was called Love Song, you asked them what the most meaningful love song was to them, and I want you to answer the same question.
Ooh, bitch.
And you cannot say you haven't thought of this. You asked all of those people that.
No, you know what's terrible is I had an answer ready when I was doing all of those interviews, just in case one of them came back to me. And now I can't remember which one I had picked.
Oh, no.
I should have written it down.
Why did it make my heart so happy when you called me a bitch?
I mean, the reality is there are... The reality is there are so many songs that have meant a lot to me in my life. I will reveal something really nerdy about myself and my husband, and I will give the answer of Running Home to You, which was a ballad that was sung on the musical episode of the series The Flash.
Nice.
Which my husband and I chose as our first dance song at our wedding.
That's a good answer.
So that is the answer I will give as a love song that has meant something to me. So we're nerds. For what it's worth, we also, after this, like, the kiss at the end of our ceremony, we also exited to, like, the big theme song from Star Wars.
Oh, that's awesome.
So that made my husband very, very happy.
Well, that is fantastic. I think that is a spectacular choice.
Thank you.
I think that's it as far as questions we have. We've done this before, but just because it's been a year, where can people find you online if they want to get in touch with you?
Absolutely. I would say just go to my website. It's kirtreads.com. That's KIRT for Kirt. kirtreads.com. And then that's where you can find my blog, all my social media stuff. Otherwise, just Google Kirt Graves, again, with the KIRT, since that's a little bit unusual spelling for Kirt. I usually am the first thing that pops up.
Thank you again for taking the time to chat with us. It sounds like you've got a lot of awesome projects and the holidays creeping up, so it means a lot that you jump back on the show to chat with us today.
It was my pleasure, and it will be my goal to be back on soon so that I can dethrone Gail Carriger.
Challenge accepted.
Thanks so much for having me back on, guys. And Jess, I look forward to meeting you next year. And Markie, it's nice to chat with you again after actually knowing what your face looks like.
I know, right? Fun.
All right. Thanks so much, guys.
Thank you again, Kirt, for taking the time to chat with us. We love you, and I don't know what else to add.
So I warned you about this ahead of time so you wouldn't get mad at me, but since we made Kirt with no notice tell us what love song that was most meaningful to him, I'm going to make you do the same thing.
And I'm going to rebuttal and make you do the same thing right after me. So, but I did have warnings, so, this is all planned. My love song is kind of nerdy, and when you had initially asked me, I was trying to find something better, which sounds shitty. And it made, I don't want to degrade how this love song actually is pretty meaningful, but I wanted something not as cheesy, but I guess it works out because of how it plays. So my love song is Lucky by Jason Mraz, because around the time that song came out, me and my now husband had just gotten married, and he deployed. I want to say a couple months after we got married, he was gone. The lyrics of that song is basically talking about being separated from the person you love and reuniting after being gone for a long amount of time. And the real kick in the ass is that when he was deployed, that song was playing in the store that I worked at. It was like a loop thing. It would come on a couple times a day. So it was like an extra little shank in the heart every time it came on, because the lyrics were just very bittersweet and wonderful. And it still holds true. Every time I hear that song, it takes me back to that, and it's still very impactful. So, but it is extremely sappy, cheesy, Jason Mraz, ooey gooey kind of love song. So as much as it pains me to admit, it's very much my heart song.
I kind of feel like I should have gone first because yours is more meaningful seeming than mine.
Yours, I think, is cooler though.
I wouldn't say that. It's not a traditional love song as I'm wont to do. So it's actually a song that actually is not about a relationship, even though the lyrics make it seem like it. It was actually about heroin, which is super fun, but the lyrics stand true. Me and my husband are both really big Nine Inch Nails fans, and we really kind of came together over Nine Inch Nails at the beginning of our relationship, the fact that we were both super nuts about them, and just it's kind of continued over the years we've been together. And the song we walked away from our wedding vows at, what is that called? I know the procession is when you walk in. What is it called when you walk? I kept labeling it my walking away music.
Is it exit music? I don't know. I don't know if that's to play or something, but I always imagine it as exit music, so that's what I call it.
That sounds more eloquent than walking away music. We'll go with that. So my exit music for my wedding was We're in This Together Now by Nine Inch Nails. Just, I don't know. I'm not going to go into it really because I'd have to go through the lyrics, and that's not what anybody is here for, but it's just always, it was right after we had decided we were getting married, and I was just listening to Nails in my car, like I do, and that song came on, and I was like, oh, it would be awesome if that could be my wedding music. And then I was like, well, it could just, walking away. And just, fun fact, I walked down my processional music was also Nine Inch Nails as well, but it was a remix. But yeah, so not near as meaningful of living away from my brand new husband for, years before finally getting to live together. But, it's a thing.
Everybody's love song's different, so
that's
it's
true.
And
that's part of why it's awesome.
Mm-hmm. So good question. I'm glad you stole that.
Yeah. Thanks, Kirt, because loved it. That was fun. It was a fun question. So contest winners. Winner. So one very lucky, awesome person gets a very, very cool prize.
Yeah. So just to recap, we the prizes that we were giving out for our birthday giveaway was a bunch of really cool books from Gail Carriger, Sloan Kennedy, Charlie Cochet, and Kay American. All of them donated books for these prizes, and I think bonus swag and stuff. So the winner gets, I think, physical copies of books from Gail, Sloan, and Charlie, and then Kay American's donating an entire book set of the Guns and Boys series. So, and that's the e-copy of those. So a shit ton of books. You lucky bastard. So the winner is Vasa Lady on Twitter. So congratulations, you lucky duck. You got a lot of really cool stuff coming your way. So yeah, I'm mad jealous. I hope you enjoy it.
Yeah, I would have liked to have entered that contest. It was a lot of really good stuff.
Yeah, it really was. Do you want to chat about what we decided to pick for our December bottom this month?
Yes, let's do that. So for our bottom pick for December, we didn't really, there are so many holiday and Christmas themed male romances to choose from, and we were starting to go through them and it was getting really overwhelming, and I think we were both kind of feeling something a little off the wall.
Correct. And a lot of really good authors came out with a lot of really awesome Christmas short stories. Ella Frank being one of them. I think Ella Frank and Brooke Blaine just came out with one, but a lot of our super favorite authors came out with Christmassy stuff within the past 2 weeks, but it was all contemporary. And while contemporary is a fantastic genre that we both love, not what we're feeling this holiday. So we went with something a little different.
Yes. So we're going with those Bloody Christmas Elves from Emmi Lawrence. Yeah, so definitely not just a normal contemporary Christmas feel good kind of thing. I don't know if it's going to be feel good or not. We'll find out.
I don't think it is, because apparently this is going to be kind of a dark, action-packed little short story, and I'm digging it, man. I'm already so excited.
Yeah, so and we also wanted to pick something relatively short because so many people are so busy with family and work and all sorts of stuff during December, so we wanted it to be something easily digestible. So this it's just over 100 pages, so it won't take you too long, but it should be super fun. So this guy fights Christmas elves, and he has for years, and basically these children keep getting kidnapped. He's going to try to help find them, and he's got some of the parents to deal with, and one of the parents, I'm guessing, is another hot dad. So this should be fun.
Yeah, I'm so into it, man. And I think it came out last year, and it was on our holiday picks for last December of just cool little fun holiday short stories to get into. And I remember us putting it on the list and being like, this looks super interesting, but we weren't able to get to it. We read a bunch of other cool little short stories, but I'm glad we circled back around to that list when we were trying to pick something, because man, I'm just feeling it so hard. I can't wait to read it. It's going to be fun.
I agree. So I'm looking forward to it. I'm glad that we picked something relatively short because I really like to give whatever our book pick is good attention, but man, this time of year is rough for that. So
yeah, for sure.
Yeah, so we've talked about our interview with Kirt. We have talked about our favorite love songs or our most meaningful love songs. We announced our contest winner, and we have dropped our book pick. Is there anything else for us for this part of the month?
I don't think so. I think that's all the nitty-gritty for now.
Fantastic. All right, well, we will see you guys. I believe our next episode actually drops on Christmas Day. Nope, the day before that, because Christmas is on a Tuesday. I'm paying attention.
So it'll be Christmas Eve.
Oh, and no, so it's actually New Year's Eve.
Oh, New Year's Eve. Oh, man. Oh, we may have to have a little party or something. We'll put a pin in it.
Okay. So this episode will actually drop, or our bottom episode will drop on New Year's Eve, so be ready to talk to us about our ridiculous Christmas books. We're going to talk about if we met our New Year's resolutions and many more things. So we will see you then.
Yep, until then.
Bye.